fun into our daily lives. And that's, I think, when we get in a rut or stuck, is when things aren't fun, when you get sucked into that mundane, or that the kids fighting, or that you feel like crap, right? On a day, and all you want to do is sleep, or you're melting hot or freezing cold, or nothing's going your way. I was like, if you can find something funny in it,
Yeah.
like it changes like the entire day.
All right. I am so excited to jump into this episode. I know both of us, we were just saying that we're both like in the ovulatory phase of our cycles. So this is probably going to be a really good episode because we're both going to be like on fire and ready and just like jiving. I just got off another one and that's how I felt during there. So I know this is going to be great. Before we just like dive in and go all in and like fire hose the audience right now, would you mind just going ahead and introducing yourself and telling a little bit about you?
Yeah, sure. Oh, that's so broad, right? Like, tell a little bit about you. It's good though. Like, anyway, this is what I say when I do interviews as well. Is like, to anyone who's never done an interview, I was like, you need to have your origin story, like, where you come from, what were your transition moments, and who you help with what problems. So it's great that you are like, here you go. I'm Johanne Bade. I'm a business coach for moms, although I am attracting a lot more people who aren't moms, which is really interesting being here in Costa Rica. I specialize in helping people who are like really overwhelmed and doubting like which way they want to go in their business, to really create businesses that both like that bring energy and that are aligned with their ideal life. And this is the thing, I think a lot of us, and moms especially, when we go into business, we're like, we want to have more time and space for our kids. And some people step out of a 9 to 5 and then find themselves working like a 9 to 9, and you can't shut off from work and all of this stuff, and then you're not earning enough income, or you're earning so much income and you have no time with your family, which is why you started it in the first place. Right? You're nodding a lot. I'm like, this is similar to what you do, and I love that we are so aligned on so many levels. But I didn't start off this way. So all the way back in the day, I was born on a boat and I grew up traveling the world, and people are like, oh, that's why you travel. I'm like, no, my brother lives a 20-minute drive away from my mom in California. The fact that I do this, like, yes, partially genetic, but partially not. And I ended up back in the States for high school, college, that sort of stuff. And then I took off traveling for a year, and that was in 2009. So I've been like outside of the States for 13 years now. And I ended up falling in love with a Dutch guy. We met in a bar in Tel Aviv, romance, did what I thought I'd never do and move across the world for a guy. And then I went back to school. I already had my bachelor's degrees. I went back to school. I got my master's degree. I was working for the Dutch Council for Refugees. And then my relationship ended, and I ended up like being like on the street with not on the street literally, but I had $27 in my name. I didn't have my own home. I was staying with friends, and it just brought home how vulnerable I was in that moment. And the only thing I knew then was, got to find a job. But those were like when the seeds of starting my own business kind of got planted, that I was like, I want to do something different, something supplementary. And a year after that, I started my first business, and it was while I was working full time. And it was kind of like just me like playing around with business. And it failed miserably and I hated it. It was copywriting, translation, training, and coaching. Like, those were all the titles that I put into like one thing. I was like, let me do everything at once. And it was like the most boring work ever. I was good at it because English is my native language. But after that, I went through like all these different businesses, and including like getting subsidies, starting a nonprofit. And I was already a coach at the time. And then I became a hormone balance trainer. So I love like the stuff that you're doing with your cycle. And then I also became a parent coach, and then transitioned into business coaching when my clients started asking like, hey, can you help out on the work front? And I was like, oh, but I love my mission anyway, is helping other moms make their lives easier. Right. So like that's still aligned, whether it was becoming healthier, becoming better parents, or making your business life easier. I was like, oh, it's all still aligned with my vision. So my coach at the time also was like, well, your clients are asking for this. Why don't you just roll with it? And so that's how I ended up, becoming a business coach. And during all this transition, we left the Netherlands. My husband's Dutch, where I ended up being for 12 years, right? So I went traveling, 12 years was there. And then we went to Mexico, which wasn't our original destination, but Mexico. And I've been in Costa Rica for just over a year. And I kind of fell in love with this country. So I'm now like kind of like settling into tropical life. And I'm seeing you in your sweater, and I'm like, I'm hot because I put on a shirt, right? Like, this is like the crazy thing. It's like the middle of summer here. Everything is dry and hot, and it got like 39. So it's like 110 degrees, right? The other day. And I'm just like sweating. but poor me living the tropical life. I'm not complaining at all.
Yeah.
That's me in a nutshell, right? Like, so I'm in this very interesting phase that I'm still doing most of my business stuff online, but I'm starting to work with local entrepreneurs, and Costa Rica is a beautiful place of transition and retreats and healing and medicine and all this stuff. So they're so open to alternative ways of doing things. I just had this conversation with someone who was like, well, you only help moms? And I was like, no, my actual core requirement under everything, and I don't even say this to people all the time, but has to be impact related. Like if someone wants to make a positive impact in other people's lives, then I'm on board.
Yeah.
Like one of my clients is a surf instructor. And at first I was like, I'm not sure if like we're aligned. And then we were listing all her different businesses. And the sixth one on the list was an orphanage. And I was like, there it is. I was like, all this money that she's going to be earning is feeding back into creating a positive impact in other people's lives. And so that's how we met, right? Because I'm doing this interview series as well. And that this, like, learning how to like tune in, I'm fascinated by what you do. So that's why I'm here too, just like babbling about all this different stuff.
Well, and I think it's fascinating and it's so fun to watch like everybody's journeys and like how they get to where we go. And even to go back to like the interview I just did was a different podcast, but we talked about how your journey and like everything that even like all those things that you maybe perceived as like failures or things weren't going your way or any of that type of stuff, all of them are leading you to somewhere. And sometimes we don't know where that place is and where that destination is. And so we just see it in the moment and we're like, gosh, this is failing. Why is this not working? Why is this not working? Where like now I look back and I look at like the health and fitness stuff I did, the decluttering stuff I did, all of the serving the moms that I did, all the things that I did gave me the breadth and the tools and the resources and the knowledge and all of those things to show up the way I show up now. And if I had been given my business that I have now, if I'd been given this business 5 years ago, I wouldn't have known what to do. I wouldn't have been able to serve, like, right. So all of those things, that journey is leading us to somewhere. And sometimes we don't know what that end destination is. Well, oftentimes we don't know.
Yeah, I was going to say most of the time.
We don't know.
If you look at your life a decade ago, you didn't see yourself here.
Oh, no.
I know for sure, because I'm about to turn 40 this year. So I'm in this like reflective like phase. I was like, I know for sure that I have no idea where I'm going to be when I'm 50, because when I was 30, I had no idea that I would be living in Costa Rica as a digital nomad, right? Like, so I think that you hit the nail on the head there with the enjoying the journey. And I was just, because my mom is here for 2 weeks, which is amazing. This is one of the things I've really learned being in business is being able to ask for help.
Yeah.
And well, not just ask for help, but knowing what to ask for. Because one of those transition moments that I left out in my whole origin story was actually me falling down some stairs, breaking a foot, and like literally it was on moving day. And I had to sit for 6 weeks and not do anything in a new town with boxes piled around me. I had a 2-year-old and a 10-month-old at the time. And I literally couldn't put a foot on the ground. But what I could do was organize. Yeah. So I got on the phone and I did all this organizational stuff. And I just had to know exactly what to ask people for, because everyone was saying, I'll help. But if they don't know what to help you with, right? Like if someone's going through a grieving process or separation or a new business, they have no idea how to help until you ask them. So last time when my husband was gone for a couple of weeks, my mom was like, oh, I'll come and stay with you. And I was like, no, I'll be fine. 16 days later, I was like pulling out my hair. I was like, so much respect for single moms. And this time it was going to be 3 weeks. So I was like, hey, Mom, can you come down and hang out? And I was just reflecting with her last night that one of the beautiful gifts that I've gotten from being here in Costa Rica, and there's a lot of transitions. It's a place of transitions, a lot going on in my life right now. But the gift of being here in the moment, right? The not like being stuck in the what ifs or the coulda, shoulda, wouldas in the past, and not freaking out or trying to predict too much the future, right? Like to a certain extent, like I'm not ignorant of everything and I'm not like all over the place. I do have goals and I like to aim for something, but I'm very aware that I may end up somewhere else. The point is to be able to have a direction that I want to go and but enjoy. Enjoy the journey, enjoy those moments. Like, and if I'm not enjoying stuff like in my business, for example, find ways to make it fun or delegate it. Right? Like this is again, making my life easy. And so with my babies at home, right? We were just talking like, I got a 2.5-year-old at home. Can't leave her alone for a moment because she's like 6. She literally was like hugging my leg when I was like in the kitchen, like just like hugging my leg and laying on it. You can't do much in that situation. And instead of like fighting about it, because last night I also had a 2 hour long bedtime ritual with the kids, like 2 hours before they went to sleep. And I was like, okay, I can be frustrated about it, or I can be like, all right, well, I'm getting to spend quality time with my kids and I'm doing what I can right now.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, so that reminds me, I'm reading a book right now. I think it's called Be Your Future Self Now. And I don't know where or how I heard about it. I think it must've been on a podcast or a coaching call or something. And I put it on my list at the library, and it took, I think it must've done it like 6 or 7 months ago, because I don't remember ever putting the book on my hold list, but it like showed up and said, your book is ready and waiting. And I was like, okay, I'll go down and get it. And it's been amazing to dive into. And that's one of the things he kind of talks about right out of the gate, is the sense of, like, if you were 80 years old, 70 years old, and you could come back and relive today, like when your kids are young and you're in your house and they're melting down and they're, there's food on the floor and all those types of things. Would you as an 80-year-old give anything to relive a day with your kids as they were little? Right? Like, I know my parents would be like, I would love to go back and just hold, even for me, like my son just turned 9, and we were looking back through Google Photos. Like, we went all the way back to his birthday. And then we were just like randomly scrolling through the photos, and we'd stop and then we'd watch a video or look at the picture, like in random intervals around, like between his last 9 years. And going through it, I'm like, oh my gosh, I would go back to just hold and snuggle you like that. Like when you were just so teeny and tiny. And it's kind of that was his whole thing, was like, if you know that, like, when you're 70 or 80 or 60 or whatever, if you could, what we would give to go back in a day, can you take that feeling, right? That sense of gratitude and that sense of, to be able to hug them one more time, or to be able to hold them and like read to them one more time. Like, if you could take that essence and bring it and live it into your day today, how much your life would change. If you started to look at even like the frustrating things of, like you said, bedtime taking 2.5 hours. I hate bedtime because of that. But if you could take like bedtime and think, this is a moment that someday I will miss. And this is a moment that I can live fully present in this moment and cherish in this moment, and know that someday down the road, I would give anything to come back and relive this moment, how different you would show up every single day.
Absolutely. And the interesting thing was, I did hit a moment of frustration because I was supposed to go over and hang out with another mom who's here in the complex, whose kids go to sleep like at 6:30 in the evening. And so she messaged me at 8:00 that she was already ready for me to come over and hang out. And then I don't get over there. So I was like at 9:00, I was like kind of getting to my wit's end. And then I just kind of laid down there and snuggled next to her and saw like how cute this little face was. And was just kind of enjoying the fact that she wanted to listen to Five Little Monkeys on repeat. Like, that's a song that was just like on. And I was like, yeah, it is what it is. And exactly that, the tapping into the being grateful and connected and in the moment, and loving that they do want the snuggles. I mean, my 7-year-old, he's going to be 8, was pissed at me last night because I didn't come cuddle him. Right. And that's because I've got 3 kids and I've only got 2 sides, and they can't sleep in the same room because they make each other freaking hyper, right? They're 2, 5, and 7. My 5-year-old usually gives it up the quickest, but then his baby sister is like laying on him, right? Like, it's this whole dynamic. And it's, sometimes it drives me absolutely freaking bonkers. And other times, like, they're like the cutest things ever. So I'm, before the business coaching, like I said, I did the parent coaching. So I'm so aware that if I can just find, and this was one of the things that I taught, was like the fun, the facts, and I'm going to forget it, but like fun, facts, and feelings, fun, and facts. Those are like the 3 F's that I would always talk about. Like, you have to recognize feelings, but if you can make it fun for yourself, like whenever you're in that irritated mode, and this is what I've translated to business. And so, because you're saying like exactly that, right? Everything that has led up to me in being a business coach, like if I had just been plopped here, I don't think I'd have half the knowledge and experience. And I'm in like huge phase of transition right now. And I'm just kind of looking at like, how is this going to fit? Like, how would I describe this from my origin story? And I have to laugh because some of the people are looking at me like, how are you so calm and stable given everything that's going on? I was like, nah, step at a time. So all I can do is step at a time. Because when I do zoom out, I get that overwhelmed feeling and I'm sure you see your clients do this too. Like they want to go from Mount Everest, but like, how the hell do you start climbing and training for that climb? But you're like, think about how awesome it's going to be when I do get to Mount Everest and get to like talk about it. Right. Just that. So that's, the fun, right? Finding the fun, even in your business, because people don't often associate like fun with business.
Yeah.
And I see that you bring that in a lot of the interviews I've been doing as well. It's like, we end up laughing. And then I'm like, yes, every time I like start laughing during an interview, I'm like, yes, score, check in the box, because we're having fun when doing it.
Yeah.
We're bringing the fun into our daily lives. And that's, I think, when we get in a rut or stuck, is when things aren't fun, when you get sucked into that mundane, or that the kids fighting, or that you feel like crap, right? On a day, and all you want to do is sleep, or you're melting hot or freezing cold, or nothing's going your way. I was like, if you can find something funny in it,
yeah,
like it changes like the entire day.
Yes. Oh, so much so. And like, I find like movement, like dance and singing
Absolutely.
and things like that are like great ways to do that and break you out of a mood. Or even my kids, I'll turn up the music really loud in the car and like turn it on and make fun. And my daughter's 12. And so she's entering into the phase where mom's starting to become embarrassing. And so I'm like fully embracing it, thinking if I'm fully embarrassing, but I'm fun, then someday she'll look back on this and be like, my mom was really embarrassing, but at least she was fun. Like it was fun in the process, but that's a whole nother story.
No, but I get it, because I'm what weird one. Like I'm in Costa Rica, right? And so I already stick out because I'm a gringa, and I'm that weird, like one, like car dancing on the way, like in the morning, and rolling up to school with like gummy bears on full blast with 6 kids in my car, because I'm taking the neighbors' kids too. Right. But the music thing is beautiful.
Yeah.
I wrote a blog on this a long time ago that was, and I even made a 30-second dance break playlist, because like even that, like the movement, 30 seconds, like if you want to do a switch, you want to get yourself moving, the mood switch, that will work. And I use that with my kids though. In the morning, like our exit song is, I think it's the Black Eyed Peas. They do It's Time for Some Action.
Okay.
So that's like, and we have to, like, the game is like, you have to get to the car before the end of the song, or like the house is going to explode, right? Like
I like
imagination phase, because they're all like 7. So they like, as soon as they hear it, they got to grab their bags and they got to run, right? And it just makes the exiting the house, instead of like, oh guys, come on. Like, and I'll find myself getting into that. And I'm like, I got to remember, just put on the music and then run out the door. It makes our whole life so much easier if we can just flick that fun button.
Yeah. Oh, I like that. I oftentimes I'm like, T-minus 15 minutes to departure, like T-minus 5 minutes to departure. And then I'm like, I'll be in the car. Like we have this, at least giving them like we're leaving, but I like that song part. Yeah. So I know a lot of this we've talked about, like in terms of fun. I think it kind of coincides with this idea of alignment too. When we are in alignment with what we're doing and how we're serving and how we're showing up, or even how alignment with our bodies and alignment with the impact and the purpose that we want to make. And like this sense of alignment. And I know alignment is this word that gets thrown out there a lot, and you hear it a lot. And like, especially in some of more of the, I don't want to say just spiritual entrepreneurs, but kind of in the sense of like, when you're in alignment with everything changes. So I would love for you to share a little bit. I know that's a big part of your mantra and method too, is like, what does alignment actually look like? Number one, and kind of that idea of like, how do you know when you're in alignment? Because I think that that's a big part for people, is where you might feel like you're in alignment or feel like that, but may not totally sure.
Yeah. I find it, interestingly enough, that is a tough question, but it's just kind of like, because I think the same as everyone's body is different, like everyone's sense of alignment is different. And it starts with awareness of, what do I want in my life? Like, what do I want to create? A lot of people, like, they'll start a business and they won't even have any idea where they want to go with it. And then they just kind of get caught up in the day-to-day, or they're earning money, and then they find themselves somewhere. So like really just being conscious. And I know that's another one of those words, like, be conscious and aligned. I think the being tuned in, and especially like your body, right? So I think because this is something you do a lot, if you're tuned into like how your body is feeling, how your mental state is, right? Not just because obviously your time of the month's like impacts that, but if on a consistent basis, you're finding that you're not really enjoying what you're doing, you're not getting the results that you want. So it could be any one of these factors, right? If you're not enjoying, you're not getting the results, you're struggling, like it feels hard all the time, right? There are aspects of business that are hard, but if it feels hard all the time, then that's a sign that something is off, right? So I think it's more the identifying when things are off, to start making the switch. And then like making those incremental shifts, and measuring yourself, right? Like I'm a huge nerd, and I have a research master. So I always measure just simply like, hey, on a scale of 1 to 10, like how much am I enjoying this?
Yeah.
Right. And asking yourself those questions. And if you're consistently like rating yourself low on those things, like, wait, how can I bump it up just like from a 4 to a 5?
Yeah.
Right. Or 5 to a 6. So it's aiming for that instead of like, oh, I'm going to immediately be in alignment, because I feel like even for myself, it's a constant process. Right. And you notice it more when you get off track, and then the feeling on track, it can be a feeling, but it can also be literally like those financial results coming in. It can be the clients coming in. It could be, right, if you're talking about like manifestation and positive energy and law of attraction, all this sort of stuff, like things just start falling into place. You meet the right people, right, or you get on the right podcast or whatever it is. So I like to think of it as like test and tweak. Right, you test. Is it like bringing my energy up? Am I feeling better with it? Is it creating the results that I want? Because you can create results, but are the results you want? Right. I think that's why there's no one cookie cutter answer to this, because some people do want to earn more money. Some people want to have just more free time. Right. Some people want to do different things with their business or create impact. So it's like, are you creating the results that you want while maintaining your energy, like the energy? If you're finding yourself like, not only during that time of the month, because I had to think of you. It was like a week ago, and I got home and there was no reason. I went to sleep early the night before, and it was like 9:30, and I was like, I just want to go to bed. And I had all these great things on my plate, and I was like, no, pretty sure that's that phase of the month where I should just listen to my body and lay down. And I slept for like I laid down on the couch and I went to sleep for an hour and a half.
Yeah.
And that is so like, that's what I mean with the like being the tuned in and more in alignment, because when I woke up, I felt like I was 3 times more productive, and I got all the things on my list done in like the 1 hour I had left. Whereas if I had tried to force it, I wouldn't have been in alignment. I mean, to give you a concrete example, right? Like I would not have been in alignment with what my body, my energy needed. Also, if you're talking about being in alignment, it's you walk the talk, right? Like it's really hard to I've been there, and you don't have to be perfect. Like this is the thing, but I'm like, if you're working and developing yourself in right, whatever area you're working in, you gotta walk the talk. If you're telling your clients, hey, you need to be consistent in your marketing, you should also be consistent in your marketing, right? Whatever that means for you. But also if you're saying, hey, enjoy life, and you're waking up every day, right? Then you're not really in alignment. So I hope that kind of like answers the question of it. It's such a big topic. But I think like the essence of it is be aware when you're off track, and test and tweak to make the incremental changes in the right direction for you, not for everyone else, right? Because someone else's like ideal aligned business or life could be the most boring thing ever for you. I'm fully aware that not like the nomadic location free lifestyle that I'm living is not for everyone, and that like maybe the dream is owning their own home and going on 4 vacations on a all-inclusive like cruise, which is like not my idea of, like but that could be their idea of, hey, I'm living my ideal life, and in alignment with, values are a big part of alignment as well.
And I think for me, I think that, so I was a part of my like coaches, like he had a case study thing of the year, and I was one of the finalists. And that was a big part of it, was that for me, it came down to just what you said, in the sense of like, I was trying to do something, I was doing it over and over and over again, and I was frustrated with the results. I was frustrated with the way I was showing up. And I think the big thing for me was that I looked at like what I would call competitors, but I don't really consider people like competitors, but people that were doing similar things that I was doing, and the way they were showing up and the way that they were talking and what they were putting out and stuff. I was like, I don't want to talk that way. Like, I don't want to do that. Like, not in the sense of like we have our own spin, but it was just like, I don't want to, that's not what I want to talk about all day. Like, that's not how I want to show up every day. And I don't want to do that. And that was, I think for me, this big resonating feeling of like, if I don't want to do what all of these other people are doing that are seeing success, like if that's not how I want to talk and what I want to share and what I want to teach and like all these things, then why am I trying to do that? Like, and so same thing, like went through this major transition. But once I think you find that sense of what it is that makes you feel good, makes you feel like you are having an impact with, that feels like something you could talk all day about, right? Like like you just said something about work. Like I love working in my business. Like some days I wish I could work in my business and not actually take care of my kids because it's more, some days I feel like it's more
easier.
fun. It's easier. Yes, 100%. And I don't feel guilty saying that right now. But
that's why when people say, like, when I ask what people do and they're like, oh, I'm a stay-at-home mom, and they feel like that's not work. I'm like, are you kidding me? That's like the hardest work there is.
Yes. Oh, some days I'm like, I told my husband, I'm like, I don't even want to be around them. I would just go in the other room and work on my business all day if I could right now. Like, but anyways, but I think that once you find that moment of like, this feels like it lights you up on the inside, it feels like it's something you can talk about every single day. It feels like it has this impact that you feel passionate about, all these things. Like, that's where I think you can really create a business that meets with your life and not just what everybody else tells you to do, or like,
and this
I don't know.
Being like, okay, so this again, going back to my research background, like being comfortable or framing it as an experiment, right? And a process that it's not going to just overnight, you're going to be like, this is my purpose. This is exactly the business that I'm going to do. That's perfectly aligned with me in my life. And I know exactly where I'm going. It doesn't work like that. Right. So I think it's a process of getting to know yourself, first of all. I don't know if you've ever read, I think it's Gay Hendricks who wrote The Big Leap.
No, but you're the second person that I've heard that from this week.
Yeah. Oh, interesting. You're like on my list.
Yeah.
But there's just, I listened to the audiobook and it's all about finding your zone of genius.
Yeah.
And it's been a process of like, I've been in business for 8 years to get to where I am right now. And I've gone through, like I said, so many different business ideas, physical businesses, online businesses, coaching, non-coaching, and just tuning into what it is that I like doing, what I'm good at, and what people pay for, right? Like that's kind of like that trifecta that you're going for. And that's why I'm doing more of these things, right? Like podcasts, interviews. I'm doing a lot of live events in my group because I've really tapped into what I enjoy doing. And also I'm following my intuition a lot more in business and trusting myself. I think that's something as well, like exactly what you talked about, looking around at people who are doing similar things or who are in your niche and seeing people who are quote unquote successful, because I look at success in many different factors, right?
Yes.
It's also like, hey, if you work 2 hours a day and you're making the same income as someone else who's working like 10 hours a day, like for me, that's also successful.
Yeah.
Right. It's the quality of life or the impact you're making on other people's lives. But looking at it from that perspective, so helpful, and getting really like having fun with getting to know yourself along the way.
Yeah. I love it. Yeah. I think it's so valuable. And I think we've both hit on it, but a lot of it just takes a lot of introspection and a lot of self-awareness and being okay with taking that examine and looking at yourself and looking at what fits and what doesn't, and being okay with letting things go and letting things shift. And like you said, being a researcher, being experimental with it all and not seeing it as this all in. If this doesn't work, then that means I failed. But this like, let's test this out. Let's try this. Let's see where this goes. Let's see how this feels. And I think that approach to any of it is what makes the biggest difference.
Well, and this is funny. This was exactly the conversation I had with someone who I just started coaching, who's been like, is working full time, is miserable in their work, and wants to make a change. And she's been like stuck figuring out what is it that I'm going to do. And it was the reframe. I said to her, I was like, it looks like you're looking for the thing. And she's like, yes, I'm looking for the thing. And I was like, what if we reframe it as the thing for right now? And her whole body just like, it was like this sigh of relief, because then it's temporary. Then she could look at it, because she had a project management background. And she's like, then I can look at it as a project. And I'll work on this for the next year. And you can have a lot more fun with that, other than it's this thing that I have to do for the next X number of years, or this is, because that's also our genetic programming, right? Like we're of the generation that is having a lot more freedom. Before, in my parents' generation anyway, it was like, you go to work for the same company for 30 years, you retire, and that's it, right? So anything like short term, like, what are you doing? My mom still says this to me, and she's inside, right? She's like, why don't you just go get a job? I was like, because that's boring and I don't want to. I can't even imagine working for a boss right now. I think I'd be like the worst employee ever. But I have way too much fun doing my own thing. And that's like, I think that's where you want to get to as well, because unfortunately, like, and I'm sure you've seen this with your clients as well, like it can be so frustrating. And when you get in that spot where you're not enjoying, you're not aligned, you're not seeing results, it's so easy to just go back to like the known and your comfort zone, right? Like, oh, let me just get a job, at least it'll provide the security of income. But then by doing that, we're giving up so many of the things that we really want. And we just like, oh, okay, but maybe that was too ambitious or too out of the box or not normal or whatever it is. So maybe that was me being unrealistic, and I should just, be more realistic and settle. And that's the thing that drives me nuts. I'm like, no, you got to be ambitious. You got to think outside of the box, and not like not the way I do, but really doing that digging and like, what is it that I want with my life? Like, am I going to look back exactly what you said at 80 and really be content with the things I've done, or I'm going to look back and have regrets? Like, this was exactly when we left, we were going to go for a year. We're like, okay, again, project, right? I'm going for a year. It's overseeable. This is my way of doing things. But we would have regretted it so much. Like, I was like, the worst thing that's going to happen, we're going to fail. Right? We're going to run out of money. It's not going to work. We're going to hate it. And we'll go back and we'll get jobs and whatever. Right? Continue the same old, same old. I was like, but I knew I was going to regret not going on this adventure. I'd much rather like have to pack it up than never even attempt it in the first place. So that's my take on things.
No, I agree. And I think that it's kind of comes back full circle, bringing it back to living your life right now in this present moment, and like looking at how you can make the most of this moment and not know what the future is going to hold. And we don't know, we can't predict. We can plan as best as our best intentions have, but we don't have control over the future as much as we think we do. So
actually, when we left from Mexico, I said to my husband, I was like, the thing that's going to determine our success in this adventure is going to be our ability to deal with the unexpected.
Yeah.
Because when you're traveling, when you're in foreign countries, but also in business, like unexpected shit happens all the time. And it's how you handle it that makes all the difference in the world. And like everything from flat tires to COVID to, I don't know, forest fires to like the internet going down in the middle of your sessions, like your ability to handle that, like is the defining factor.
Yes. Yeah, 100%. Oh my goodness. We could keep going on and on and on forever. We should probably wrap it up. So where can people get in touch with you so that they can dive in more? Because like I said, we could just keep going.
Just keep going. I keep it simple. It's just my name, right? So johannebade.com. You can find me also at Johanne Bade Coaching on Instagram. And if you search Johanne Bade on Facebook, I also have a Facebook group that's Business Made Easier for Badass Moms. I think anyone who's in business and has raising kids at the same time is by definition anyway a badass. So that's me. And I love connecting with people. So if anyone's resonated with the story, and just wants to reach out and have a chat, if it's like, hey, how did you make this life happen? Or are there things that you wouldn't do or regret or whatever you want to do, reach out.
Yeah. I would love that. I would love that. I would love for you guys, if there's something you walk away from this episode with, just to let either of us know what it is, because like I said, we love hearing that. We love hearing your takeaways. We love kind of being able to chat with you in the DMs and all that kind of stuff. So both of us would love to hear from you. So thank you so much for coming on this episode. It was such a pleasure, and I hope you have a fabulous day.
Thank you so much for having me, Renee.